General Blue and Mercenary Tao spent a considerable amount of time looking around. Whilst the older man was unmistakably cybernetic in his appearance, there was something sleeker about him, like he'd been through some upgrades. His head was more chrome-like, rather than just a hodgepodge of miscellaneous parts that he could muster. Yes, there was no mistaking it. His neck and head enhancement seemed to be much less crude than in the past. He looked like a 2.0 version. At the same time, General Blue looked similar at first glance, like you couldn't tell that he was anything but human. But the usual shine in his eyes, that get up and go attitude, was gone. He looked much more serious than he had previously, with his facial features looking rather stern. This may have been General Blue, but in a way it wasn't General Blue. However, he hadn't aged a day since the last time he encountered Boxer and his friends. For now, the two groups hadn't met yet. They had split into smaller groups to cover more ground. Amenmo Island was not very well known to our heroes. It was just a random island in the middle of the ocean not far from South City. Mark mentioned that he had been there once while Miguel was on tour, but he couldn't really recall all that much about it in his time there. It was rather forgettable. The only thing he could recall was that its capital was named Papaya Town. Mind you, a lot of places were called Papaya in this world, so not really a unique trait. The team then decided to divide into 4 groups of 2 people. Piccolo teamed up with Launch, which seemed like a weird sort of combination, but it seemed that they were able to find mutual agreement. "So I heard from Boxer that you finally found your alien world, huh?" The Namekian looked at her, trying to form a satisfying answer that would easily assure her.
"Well, it was pretty, but boring. Lots of greens and blues. Kinda like here, but the other way around. Yeah, just emptier than here. Kinda makes me appreciate Earth more. Namek, it's just empty. How about you? Finally made an honest living for once? Or do you still rob banks?"
I knew you'd say that. Yeah, I'm cutting down. But only on the weekends, green guy. Piccolo couldn't help but smirk at least a little bit. At least Launch was owning it, and not trying to cover her tracks or make herself look like, "Oh no, I'm a goody two-shoes, I don't rob banks at all." Most of the groups hadn't been lucky in their search, as they hadn't seen any signs of Android or Red Ribbon Army activity. As far as they were concerned, they were just taking a nice little stroll around the park and all of the city. And just because they were particularly unlucky, Jaco and Yamcha, who were paired as a duo, were the ones to encounter Tao and Blue. Both of them lamented their bad and horrid luck. "Egads! Yamcha, look! This one surely looks like an android!"
"Well, that's odd. Well, that's Mercenary Tao. He's more like a cyborg, technically. But then again, he was in cahoots with the Red Ribbon Army before, and... General Blue! Well, hey, maybe they must know something about the androids. Why don't we go and ask them?"
As the two started to approach the villains, Tao just smirked at them. Oh, God, this was just too easy. "Oh, look, General. We are in luck. Someone has already appeared before us. Have you come to die, you two?"
"Oh, isn't that one of Boxer Brief's friends? And that blasted alien? I think I recognize him as well."
"Put your hands up so I can see them, you ruffians. Either give us more information, or you can find yourself arrested by the Galactic Patrol. Do not move a muscle." Jaco aimed the ray blaster at them, causing a bit of a commotion in the middle of the street. I mean, this was technically a hold-up, and if you didn't really know the context of the situation, then you would assume that Jaco was the bad guy. Tao, though, was still regarding them both with a weird smile. Was it derogatory? Was it happy? Nobody could tell. "I'm sure this is some sort of misunderstanding, officer. But if you want to see my hands, I can help you with that." And then he stepped closer to them, very slowly. It was very unnerving. Still with his hands up in the air, though. But it wasn't genuine, and it was a rather mocking manner, as in, "Oh, look at me, I'm complying. Do not come any closer, or I will blast you." "What are you talking about? You asked me to approach you with my hands up. I am only doing as I am instructed, officer." This may have been mocking, but in less than a millisecond, Tao pulled Jaco's legs up with a quick and precise kick. The blast from the ray gun went over his shoulder, and before the patrolman could react, an energy blade was protruding from Tao's forearm, which took away one of Jaco's arms.
Yeah, we're going there.
Jaco shrieked with pain and collapsed.
Jaco!
Yamcha then powered up and charged to attack Mercenary Tao with all of his strength, with a flurry of quickened wolf fang fists. Blue was watching from afar. He'd been like the Dr. Giro of the group. He was just processing what was going down right now, trying to scan the perimeter for more of these fools. He knew there would be more. They worked as a pack, which was ironic because Yamcha was now being decimated by Tao and he was a wolf boy. There could definitely be more. Mayday! Mayday! We found the enemy! Call for backup! And a doctor! Jaco was painfully calling for reinforcements as Tao took this opportunity to then dodge Yamcha's attacks and spin kick the already injured patrolman, making his day feel even worse. At first, the bandit thought that he had the Crane School mercenary on the defensive. Surely, he couldn't have been training all that much. He spent most of his time hiding from Boxer and all that lot. The time he spent on Yardrat seemed to pay off in some way. I mean, he'd obviously done something, but he started to realize that the longer he was attacking the mercenary, the better Tao had become at dodging him. He had had to change his tactics. It was quite clear that Tao, somehow, was adapting very quickly to whatever he could throw at him. It had something to do with those cybernetics, he was sure of it. He was playing rough and dirty. As he yelled and gigantified himself, this worried his opponent, definitely. It's not every day that your opponent would suddenly grow 50 feet. But surely this would help the rest of the group locate them, because he could be just stomping around going, "Hey, he's over here! Help me! And somebody get us a senzu bean for Jaco, quick!" Yeah, sorry, we went a bit extreme there, but still, it's kind of funny and morbid. They don't need to sense energy. It's just a big guy. But when Yamcha thought that he had him on the ropes and could easily squish him, he saw General Blue looking deep into his eyes, and he suddenly felt that, despite his massive stature, he couldn't move a muscle. Remember that General Blue superpower? And speaking of muscles, he started to then feel a horrible muscle pain as Tao started to precisely stab certain parts of his body, the pressure points, in order to break his spiritual form and return him to his normal size. As the mercenary was about to deliver the killer blow to Yamcha, he heard someone yelling at them. "Leave him alone, Tao!" It was Boxer's voice. Ooh, goody, they both thought. Soon, he was there, with almost everyone else. Tenshinhan, Piccolo, Mark, Launch, Long John, and Chaozu. Yes, Chaozu's relevant here. Well, Boxer Brief and his entourage have finally arrived. Took you long enough. You like to posture when bad things are afoot. I was beginning to wonder that you'd lost your style. Tao bowed mockingly in greeting. "Don't listen to him, guys! He's just insulting you!" Yeah, we get that, said Tenshinhan. "If you think there is something amiss going on here, you might be mistaken. I was only having some fun with one of your friends. A friendly spa session, you see. But apparently, we are not the only ones with some tricks up our sleeves." "So what are you two now, huh? Some sort of androids?" They looked at each other, wondering how they were going to tell the group that their days were numbered. They were a bit shocked, though, that they had figured out their upgrades so quickly. I mean, yeah, sure, Mercenary Tao was an android. I mean, that was obvious, but General Blue? Really? Well, I think you'll find the technical term is cyborgs, Boxer, Blue started. But I wouldn't expect a simpleton like you to understand properly. Never mind that. The commander will be pleased when we bring in your head. You're free to try. Boxer was starting to get into this. A blast from the past had returned, and he was ready for this. And so the fight began. All of them versus the two of them. Mercenary Tao and Blue versus the Dragon Team. Boxer felt that this should be easy. The odds were way in the favor of the Dragon Team. But still, one question remained that he couldn't just flick away. Why were they here? Why, out of all the places on planet Earth, had they chosen Papaya Town to lure them to? Surely they could have gone to a barren wasteland. That's what they did most of the time. Why a city? Were they maybe expecting to do a little bit of shopping afterward? Whatever was left that hadn't been exploded? Their main objective should have been to lure the two of them out of the city, so no civilians would get hurt. Had they been through some really bad stuff to the point where they didn't care about that? Boxer recognized, yes, that the two were really strong, and just trying to understand how they could have gotten this so quickly. Their I-beams, energy blades, and they still needed to avoid eye contact with Blue, just like the old times. That was still there. That was the legacy effect. The one worrying trait that Tao seemed to exhibit quite frequently was the fact that he was adjusting very quickly to all of their fighting styles. Within a minute or so, he could analyze them and learn how to dodge and respond to their advances. It made the situation even harder because the actual Dragon Team would have to then adapt and develop their own techniques instead of trying to deck Tao in the schnoz. It was exhausting for them, whilst Tao was just taking it all in and going, oh, this is rather interesting. I will be able to dodge that, dodge this. Oh, you are so bad. And to top it all off, it's not like he was really taking in that much damage. Boxer could only begin to imagine that things could get much, much worse if he hadn't taken the medicine. Good thing he did. Still though, the androids, or rather cyborgs, he wanted to be fair, weren't panicked by their apparent lack of advantage. If anything, they were relentless. They did not care that they had a comfortable gap. They were going for the jugular. Maybe it was because they didn't get tired, since robots don't really get tired if they have the right battery. Or maybe this was a trap. Someone else might have been involved. These were the decoys. But when they were far enough away from Papaya Town, they actually managed to drag them away slowly. Boxer decided that he had heard enough of the Red Ribbon Cyborg story and decided to go Super Saiyan. This gave him a very powerful advantage, as Tao was now genuinely struggling to dodge, no matter what he could do to adapt. There was just that big of a power gap, and he was able to actually connect a few punches, clearly causing some light damage for once. But something was off. Boxer started to feel dizzy. Oh, was this the virus? Impossible, he thought. He'd been taking the medicine. No, it had to be something else. What's wrong, Mr. Brief? Feeling a little weak in the knees? Mercenary Tao was looking elatedly at Boxer struggling, and actually looking more in shape than ever before. Mercenary Tao was elated at Boxer struggling, him just doddery and struggling to even stand up. Boxer started to slowly understand what was actually going on. Somehow, these guys were draining his energy. He noted that neither of them were particularly surprised to see a Super Saiyan. They'd been keeping that under wraps. How would they know about that? He had to increase the distance between himself and the two cyborgs. Clearly, close contact, close quarter combat would be detrimental to him. He had to go AoE. Whilst Boxer was compromised, Tao grabbed his head and pointed it squarely at General Blue. Now, be a dear and take a good long look at General Blue's beautiful eyes, will you? Not so fast! Solar flare! Krillin was here to save the day, blinding Boxer, who managed to send an attack in the direction of General Blue, foiling his attempt. Good boy, Krillin! That's how you use it! But despite this boon, the cyborgs were dangerously close to gaining an unfair advantage, until a gigantic beam of energy hit Tao and threw him into the nearest plateau. Big Bang Attack! Vegeta! Boxer was glad to hear that voice.
Kakarot, you idiot! You got pulled into a trap! So, you two like to deal with Super Saiyans, Well, how would you say to another one?
Much to everyone's shock, including the two cyborg androids, the prince transformed into a Super Saiyan. But unlike Boxer, he kept his distance from Tao and Blue. Clearly, he had been observing the actual fracas instead of helping. He was then busy bombarding them with Ki attacks and visibly damaging them. I shall call in for reinforcements, Blue scoffed, spitting out blood. Send out MMTT2! I repeat, send out MMTT2! Deep in one of the hidden Red Ribbon Army bases, something awoke. A mountain of a man, made of wires, metal, and synthetic skin. The activation process began, much to the joy of the Red Ribbon employees gathered around it. All right, Major, you know what you have to do. Tao and Blue are counting on you.
Oh, I shall smash these Earthlings before Commander returns.
And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now.